Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to do this, so bear with me. Alright, I'm going to talk today about three sort of things that I'm hoping they all kind of come together. So, I've called it the impact of diagnosis and being a research subject, because I think very few of us have actually talked about what it's like to have researchers do research on us. So I think that will be quite an interesting aspect. Some of it, I think, has been well talked about today, so I might skip through those bits quite quickly. So, initially, why didn't I know I had it? I didn't get diagnosed until I was, over 40. And I didn't know that I had that at all. And the reasons that I can think of, basically, is that it's an invisible impairment. It's not an impairment that people can spot, so people can't really identify it. And I think it was interesting listening about the children's research in America, because actually, how do you identify that your child isn't doing something the same as others? And it's usually because their behaviour is very extreme in a kind of disruptive or non-educational way, So, whereas as an adult, you kind of get into it, really, because you do think more. So it's an invisible impairment. The other point I think is quite important, it's conceptualising a lack. So how was I supposed to know what everybody else was doing? Because it was something that I always did. And to actually start to get that light, that sort of light bulb moment really, was something that happened later on in life. There were lots of moments during my life, but there were always logical explanations. I was stupid, I was miles away, I was distracted, I was depressed, I was this, I was that. And then there's also the coping strategies that mask the symptoms, because you just learn to do things differently. There's also a lack of awareness of prosopagnosia. So a lot of people just automatically assume that it's something quite serious and something wrong with them, possibly Alzheimer's, dementia, mental illness, basic stupidity, whatever. And as the evidence accumulates, you sort of realise that something's wrong. And when you realise that something's wrong, for me, it occurred to me to get myself tested. So this is kind of pre-test, yeah? Before a test, you start thinking about what it's like to be tested. You've got an appointment coming up. So the thoughts that went through my mind at the time were, are the researchers going to be very difficult to understand? I don't know who they are. What if they think I'm wasting their time or lying? What if they tell me I'm mad? What if I can't do it? There's all these anxieties. Or maybe I'm just being over-dramatic again, But, you do your tests, you look at the pictures, you try and remember so-and-so, and this and that. And then after you realise that you have got prosopagnosia, you start to reevaluate your life in relation to your past. And you also have the experience of being tested, and I've done quite a few tests, so it's become almost a part of my life in a way. And I also set up the London Face Blind Group, which I think is useful for some of these reasons that I'll go into. So initially then you have those oh my god moments. Once you realise what it is, you then, oh, that's why I didn't recognise so-and-so when I saw them on the street. You think, oh, so that's why I can't follow storylines, as lots of people have said today, in films and books even. It's not just films, it's books as well. If there needs to be just a certain limited number of characters within a book, a fiction book, for me to actually follow it. There's panics of visiting family in hospital and going onto a ward and thinking, oh my god, where's my mother? Especially when they move beds quite a lot, it can be quite difficult. Enjoying first-time events more than subsequent ones. I've always really enjoyed kind of going to things for the first time. and always had a bit of a terror about going to things again. And it wasn't until I realised that I had this that I thought, oh, okay, that's because I quite like meeting people. But the second time, I had the terror of there's going to be people there that know me, and I'm not going to instantly recognise them. There's also the thing about not understanding photographs very well. I find it difficult sometimes to match them. I always wait for people to say hello to me first. And I talk to people who I think are somebody else sometimes, and that can be really embarrassing. And this actually goes back to what Hazel was doing, which I thought was brilliant. And it's kind of the impact, looking at it from a kind of developmental therapeutic sense of it. There is an impact on attachment. The attachment theory in psychology is all about the face and eye contact with mother and all this sort of thing. There is an impact on whether or not you think something exists when it's not there. As Hazel was saying about the peekaboo thing, you're not quite sure that it's the same thing that comes back to you when you do see it again. There is a confusion about reality, exactly as Hazel said. When you see someone, you say hello, then you actually see them somewhere else, and you think, well, what happened there? And you do get a little bit confused. There's an impact, actually, of not recognising yourself. I don't recognise myself. I can look in the mirror, I know I'm looking in the mirror, that's fine, I know it's me. But there are times when I look at something and I'm just really not click that it is me at all. There's social anxiety, so a lot of people get very withdrawn, very nervous. There's some sort of a connection somewhere about visual recognition, memory, emotional experience. If I look at a photograph of my children, say, when they were very young, I wouldn't necessarily get that sort of emotional kind of connection to it, because I'd be struggling to understand, actually, who's that in the picture? Where was I? So it's kind of more thought-led rather than emotional. And there's problems with self-esteem, I think, because you're constantly getting things wrong anyway, so you kind of learn that you're not great. So the aims of the London Photoline Group then were to meet other people with the condition, share, make sense of experiences, share coping strategies, get occasional updates from researchers, raise awareness of prosopagnosia. And I think the last 2 points are what I want to kind of go into now, but the last 2 points are providing a debriefing opportunity for research participants, which I think is really important, and contribute to the direction of future research. So why do people need a debriefing opportunity then? Well, what happens, this is what happens to me during tests, and it's also what I've heard other people who've had tests have spoken to me and mentioned to me. So I'm not saying it's everyone, but yeah, I mean, when you're doing a test, you're constantly confronting failure. You know that chances are you've got this question wrong, and you've got the next question wrong, and the next question wrong. And so after like an hour, you've actually been face to face with a lot of failure. And also, confronting faces for long periods of time when you wouldn't normally maintain eye contact with people or look at people's faces that much. Personally, I have a dislike at looking at faces intently for all the time. But you know, that might just be a personal thing. There's a fear of messing up the tests as well. You know, you get to a point in those tests sometimes where you just think, oh, blow this. I don't know. I'm just going to press the first button that comes to, comes to hand, because you've just got to a point where it's like, this is just so hard. And you don't understand sometimes the point of what you've just done and have no point of reference with how other people have experienced it. But post-test, so after the tests, there's a whole mixture of feelings, I think, that people have. So there is a sort of tiredness, I think, that people can get. There is a feeling low. I would say that I have that sometimes. And I think facing the extent of your impairment can actually leave you feeling quite powerless for a little while as well. Because you really are confronting it. But you also feel good. You feel good that you're helping. You're doing something for research. You're doing something for the future. Maybe things will change for people. And quite often you just need to chat with someone who understands what it's like. My last point really is about how can research subjects help direct research. And I go back to my previous point where I said, not realising that I had face blindness for many, many years was because I couldn't conceptualise a lack. I couldn't understand that people did something very different to me. But I think that with researchers who are not face blind, I think it takes them a long while before they can start to actually conceptualise what it's like to be face blind. You know, there's obviously the knowledge, you know, but I think it's that experience of it that's difficult for them to actually grab hold of sometimes. What are the questions people with prosopagnosia want answered as well? What is it that people like us with face blindness actually would like to find out about? And you know, what's useful in the time of limited resources as well. There isn't that much money to go around for millions and millions of research projects. So what would be useful for researchers to focus on perhaps? And also, I think it was brought up earlier, more experienced participants can inform researchers about the stimuli that are used, the actual photographs, the way it's done, because perhaps we've experienced a few and we kind of know when we're resorting to particular strategies because that picture isn't particularly useful. And I think research participants have valid questions about their condition. But I think working in partnership with research participants can be empowering and enriching for everybody. I think it should be more of a partnership really. And so I'm hoping that the Face Blind group, not that we're there militantly campaigning to do anything like that, but I think it's more about being a resource as well for researchers that perhaps might want to to run something by a group of people, not just me, but a group of people that regularly go, and just get their feedback and work together in a sense, and I think that would be really useful. So next Face Blind meeting for the group will be on November the 19th at 6 o'clock in the evening. So if anybody's interested in coming, please contact me, either email me on that address or my phone number, and I'll be very happy to see you. Thank you.